Hi, welcome to the Pursuit of Truth. So obviously COP26 is still going on, and it's interesting. I don't know whether it's ever going to achieve anything other than promises, considering they haven't met the Paris Accord 2015 promises of money to help countries build up their green technology rather than go down the Western country route of oil, coal and gas. I don't know whether this is just whether this climate change existed, or it's just a way to levy countries who are up and coming and stop the overtake of America's economy, most notably China, who didn't turn up. Rather, their premier didn't turn up. So I don't know. I mean, my worry is that the data they're using is 100, maybe 200 years old. What is the validity of the different ways that they took the data back then? I mean, if they use the same equipment now as they used back then, how accurate was that data? It's easy to manipulate data to show trends. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, I can see there's more storms, but then there's always been storms and things and rains and floods. Is that more to do with infrastructure? We know these days they don't clean the drains and gutters. And of course, if you don't do that, that's where you're going to create a flooding. That if those things were working properly, they would take that abundance of water and maybe ease the flooding, or at least not flood into people's houses. But I don't know. There doesn't seem to be much tension of that. People know that there is an issue with the underground drains and things not being cleaned anymore, or not as much, and that needs to be looked into to make sure that it's not an artificial flood that we're creating, or that would have been created previously but wasn't because the drains were cleaned, and thus it becomes like an illusion of a flood. Same with these days, every weather warning, any bit of rain is a weather warning. We've been, made to be alert of these things. Whereas in the past, they wouldn't have even bothered to tell us when it was going to rain. Or it definitely wasn't a breaking news or a weather warning or an alert story. Whereas now these things, they're upping these things. So of course that creates the illusion of these things in people's minds. But I don't know. You'd have to actually see the data and see, say if you pick the UK and you picked the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, assuming they're using the same technology and capturing the same amount of data, and then compared how many different things. But then, of course, these days we gather every piece of information. We have a lot better way of capturing everywhere, everything. And so it may not be a true inflection of that things are getting worse. So I don't know. But let's just say that it is getting worse. And there is something that we need to do. And yeah, we do know that gas and all those kind of things are pollutants. They've caused asthma. It's like smoking tobacco. So, but my interest of this angle is that how these companies, these individuals, these world leaders can all come together to solve this problem and give all this money, trillions of money. They can find this money from somewhere. That, when they keep saying countries are strapped and don't have enough money to give £20 for universal credit, etc., to help the poor people out. People are homeless and starving, and there's food banks and all this kind of stuff. And of course, the situation around the world is far worse, but they can all come together and get all this money and etc. Why is it that this event has caught them on? Is it because they know they can make money out of this? Because all these world leaders have got their fingers in green technology and they're going to make a load of money because they've invested into that, and then of course that's why they're pushing it. I don't know whether that's kind of the agenda's going on, but is it just because of selfishness? That when people were starving, because people have been starving and suffering, in the same way of, say, the climate change could cause the same kind of suffering, because of drought and floods and suffering and death and all that kind of thing has been happening in poor countries for time immemorial. and it hasn't made world leaders come together to try and sort that out. Yeah, they have little charity money that they give to them, but of course they charge them debt as well from the loans that they give them, which is often a lot higher than the charity that they give them. So it's not ever solving that situation. It's a false economy, as it were. So why is it now? Is it just because they're selfish, because they know that they're suffering, the people in the West, because they know that they're going to be suffering, or they're going to be flooded, or their people are going to die? Suddenly they're caring about the whole planet, and everyone has to come together, and we're going to give you all this money to go green. Suddenly humans have got a conscience, or these powerful, rich humans that own these big businesses that probably caused all this problem in the first place, and now they're willing to want us all to pay for it. It's a shame humanity can't realise that, you're restraining yourselves by keeping the system of money, which is, we don't have to do that. If we're all going to come together to try and solve this problem, well, the main problem is money, because that's the thing that's going to stop you from being able to do things. The system of money, the system of the way we're working is the thing that's going to get in the way, because countries are not going to want to give billions away. This country won't have that kind of money, or this country won't want to put that country higher than itself. And so it's never going to solve this problem, really. They're just all going to make promises and just not really keep them, or they're going to make promises that aren't going to be the best for humanity or the planet because of the structure and system that we live within. But it seems like no one's going to think about that. They're just going to keep pumping money into it, creating money, making money up to solve a problem that could be solved better without the system and the structure of money. And then that leads me on to Owen Paterson. I was going to cover this before, but I thought, wow, everyone knows that politicians are corrupt. But this one, it just takes the biscuit, how he's been using his position, lobbying, etc. And we all know that. I wonder how many other politicians are involved in other companies. And of course, if you write it down, then it's legal to be helping a company or being a consultant, and then you have a position that maybe that could influence. And as long as you write it down and you're saying that you're not, you're being fair and doing all that, then it's fine. But you're making money out of this thing. They probably make more money out of these things than their actual job. And we all know about David Cameron and etc. If you're from somewhere else, you're not going to understand these things. But in your country, I'm sure there's lots of politicians that are, doing things where really their job should be running the country, and that's maybe why they're not. You think that why is the country in the situation it is? Why don't they solve these problems? It's because they don't really care, because the real money they're making is with the big businesses that want their influence and want to control them so they can change laws and get business and etc. Like Boris Johnson's London and Joanna Lumley's bridge, that billions were spent on it and nothing was ever built. And the taxpayer paid for that money to go in someone's pocket to do nothing other than write some plans up. That can't have cost billions of pounds. Someone pocketed all that money, and that's how you can shift money. In other countries, they just put in an envelope and give it to you, or transfer it to the Canary Islands or something. But yeah, with this Owen Paterson thing now, that the I don't know if it was Labour as well, but the vote yesterday to not suspend him anymore, despite everyone talking about all the bad things he did and it being the worst in 100 years of misuse of power as an MP. His suspension has now been annulled because they didn't agree on it. They get the chance that someone's investigated him and said he's done all these bad things, but they get the chance to unsuspend him, and they even changed the process that looks at these politicians. That makes you worry that, are they worried about themselves getting seen and they want to tighten it up so that they can put some loophole in? But it's just shocking. It goes in front of your face. People see it on the news. People see the corruption of politicians, even in the West. You think the bastion of democracy and all this kind of rubbish that they sell to you, these illusions, and it's happening right in front of your eyes, and people are just going to carry on and keep voting for the same system that they must see with their own eyes is not working or corrupt or both. And yet we'll keep it going because, well, no one above you can tell you a better system, and so like sheep we follow. And so the people who are suffering still suffer, and the people who don't suffer because they've got all the money and all the power, and no one's ever going to challenge it, and no one's ever going to change it. And so that quagmire carries on over and over again till things get worse. That's like in my poems when I always talk about enslavement, because we enslave ourselves by these systems, by these illusions, by having our power taken away, or agreeing to have our power taken away, and keeping a system that we all know isn't working for everyone. And we're lucky because, yeah, it's not working for us, and that's maybe why we don't care so much, and we don't protest so much, and we don't make a change, because for us in the Western world it's not so bad. Yeah, it's not working. The corruption isn't really affecting us. People are taking money, people are suffering, but you've still got food banks, you've still got the NHS, you've still got all these other things, so you're not suffering as much. But in the outskirts of the world where it's poor, those people are dying. Those people don't have food, they don't have clothes, they're eating out of rubbish. And the one universal truth that I always come back to is we're all human beings, we're all the same. But we let it go on for our brothers and sisters because of the divisions that have been created for us. The man-made illusionary concepts that part of the system. Take care, take it easy, God bless, and peace.